What's up, guys? Mickle here, and it has been a tough 24 hours for the SEC. Last night, we actually got a pretty major win in the Ripple SEC case, and I was able to talk with both Jeremy Hogan and attorney Fred about it in a Twitter space. In this video, I want to break down exactly what I learned, what it means for this case going forward, because it looks like despite Ripple's win, the chances are increasing that this case is gonna go to trial. I want to break down exactly what parts will go to trial, what parts will get decided at summary judgment, and how close we are to a final decision. There is a ton to cover. You guys do not want to miss this. We also have two other major cases going on right now. One of them, the SEC just lost, and another one, it looks like the SEC is gonna lose. We're gonna break those down too, so hopefully I don't run out of time and we get through this whole thing. Like always, your support means so much to this channel. If you enjoy videos like this, make sure to like and subscribe. It really does help me out so much. With that said though, let's jump right into it, and I hope you guys enjoy the content. So guys, real quick, make sure to get your XRP pennant before they sell out. Me and 24 Hours Crypto actually sold these a while back. We sold these gold ones, but we just had these new black ones made. I think these look excellent. I'm really excited about them. The pennant with the chain is only $75. If you already have a chain and you just want the pennant, this one's only $40. And if you use the code MM when you check out, you'll also get 15% off. So make sure to check that out before they sell out. The link will be in the description of this video and the pinned comment. So let's start this video off with a case that the SEC actually just lost. And I actually covered this on the channel last night. I certainly wasn't expecting we would already have a ruling in this case, but it just came in right before I made this video, so we're going to talk about it. So just in, judge approves Voyager to sell assets to Binance in $1.3 billion deal, rejecting the objections of the SEC. So essentially what's going on here, I'll summarize it real fast. Binance was trying to buy Voyager's assets from them because essentially Voyager was an exchange that went bankrupt. None of their customers were going to get their money back, and the best way for these customers to get their money back would be for Binance to buy Voyager, make the exchange liquid again. It would just be liquid because Binance has the money to make it liquid, and then essentially this would be the best path to customers on Voyager to get their money back. Now the SEC stepped in a bizarre showing and tried to make it so Binance couldn't buy Voyager, even though it was the best thing for the customers of Voyager. The SEC was trying to claim it was a securities transaction, and some of the assets on Voyager were securities, so Binance couldn't buy Voyager. But guys, the judge was not having it. The judge absolutely roasted the SEC in the court hearing the other day, and essentially came out and said, how could you expect anyone to know what you're thinking when you refuse to give any clarity to this asset class? You're coming in and saying that these parties are violating the laws, but you haven't made any clear statements on what laws they're violating. So just today, it looks like the judge completely shut down the SEC trying to block this deal, handed Binance the win, and Binance is going to be able to buy Voyager's assets. Now, in my eyes, this is a pretty big win, not only for the customers of Voyager, but also for proving that there is no clarity in this market. SEC Chair Gary Gensler is constantly saying that the rules are clear, but now we have judges directly telling his agency the rules aren't clear and you can't run around throwing around your authority when you haven't made the rules clear. This is a slap in the face to the SEC and Gary Gensler. It shows that their theory that cryptocurrencies just apply to the old securities regime isn't holding up in court, and it's just a good step in the right direction in showing that if the SEC actually gets pushback on what it's doing and can't just bully companies into settling, the cases they're bringing are really not that strong, and a lot of the theories they are presenting to the public aren't holding up in court. Now, before we get into the Ripple SEC case, I want to go over one other loss the SEC took today, and that was to Grayscale. Now, this case didn't finish up. It was actually just the first hearing, but let me tell you, this was absolutely embarrassing for the SEC. The judges in this case, the judges who were overhearing the arguments, were not buying what the SEC was saying at all. For those of you who don't know, and I'll summarize this quickly again, essentially Grayscale is trying to make their GBTC product an ETF. They want it to be the first spot ETF on the market, and the SEC is denying their approval and only allowing futures ETFs on the market. Now, this makes absolutely no sense because both futures ETFs and spot ETFs are both based on the same exact thing, the price of Bitcoin. The SEC is allowing one of them onto the market and not the other, so Grayscale is suing the SEC, saying this is absolutely absurd. Now, like all crypto cases, it is extremely important that you get a judge that is willing to listen to the cryptocurrency company. A lot of judges in the United States will just rubber stamp anything a regulator says simply because they don't feel like learning about cryptocurrencies, so they'll just say, oh, the regulator is probably right here. Well, these judges in the Grayscale case were absolutely not having anything the SEC said, and they were questioning the SEC attorney hard, saying, what is the difference between a futures ETF and a spot ETF? They're both based on the same thing. How could you say one set of data is manipulated and the other one wasn't if they're both relying on Bitcoin's price? The SEC lawyer kept on coming back at the judges and saying, oh, well, it's kind of a chicken and the egg problem. We don't know which one is actually manipulated, the futures or the spot ETFs, so therefore we can't approve the spot ETF. But the judge said that's absolutely absurd. You just said you don't know which one is manipulated. You already approved the futures ETF, so how is approving the spot ETF any different? And the entire time the trial was going on, the judges were questioning the SEC's lawyers. They didn't understand it. It seemed like they thought the SEC's entire argument was completely absurd. Now, there are going to be more hearings in this case, but based on everything I have seen from this first hearing, and John Deaton agreed with me, the SEC is screwed here. These judges do not understand what the SEC is doing. To them, it makes no sense, and that's because they did the research, looked into it, and realized it does make no sense. The SEC is denying this product to hold back crypto. It has nothing to do with any merits. Ultimately, this is a great direction. This would be a huge case for the SEC to lose, and I think it's only a matter of time before they lose this case based on what I heard from the judges today. So for the first time ever, it looks like I'm actually making pretty good time right now. Let's try to fly through what we learned in the Ripple SEC case last night, because we actually got an extremely bullish development that is massive for Ripple's chances of winning this case. We also have something to talk about that people aren't going to like. Let's save that for the end. Let's start off and talk about Ripple's big win, because last night we actually had Judge Torres get to pick what experts would be allowed to talk in this case and what experts she was going to kick out of the case. Both Ripple and the SEC brought a ton of experts to talk about specific things they thought were important, and Judge Torres got to pick what experts would be allowed to talk and what experts would essentially just be kicked out of this thing. So the most significant thing that happened in this decision is Judge Torres actually kicked out the SEC's expert who is making a declaration on what XRP holders thought when they were buying XRP. Now, this is a massive deal because one of the prongs of the Howey test is that an investor needs to be expecting a profit in the thing they are investing in. The SEC expert that Judge Torres kicked out of this case was supposed to be making that exact argument for the SEC. He was going to say when XRP holders were buying XRP, they were really just trying to invest in Ripple. Well, Judge Torres kicked this guy out of the case. And to make things even worse for the SEC, she actually allowed John Deaton, the 75,000 XRP holders, and all the companies who filed affidavits to talk on behalf of the fact that, hey, a bunch of people use the XRP ledger who aren't even related to Ripple, and people need to buy XRP to use the ledger. This has nothing to do with investing. It's just straight up utility. This is a huge issue for the SEC because Judge Torres just kneecapped their argument at one of the main prongs of the Howey test. The SEC just lost their expert at a critical and pivotal point in this case. The SEC is now going to have a very hard time proving this prong of the Howey test because they simply don't have anyone lined up to talk about this issue, and Ripple is looking extremely strong in proving there are thousands of people out there, thousands of companies using XRP to not invest in Ripple. So that was a massive loss for the SEC, and almost every single lawyer I have seen comment on this decision by Judge Torres said it was extremely fair, it was balanced, but the SEC definitely got the short end of the stick, and Ripple came out with a massive win when it comes to proving that XRP is not a security. Now, the news that a lot of people are not going to like is the fact that most of the lawyers following this case now think there is an increased probability it goes to trial. Now, there's a lot we need to cover here. First of all, most of the lawyers don't think the entire case is going to trial. Attorney Fred broke it down in a way that really made sense to me, and I have to say I really agree with him. He thinks the Ripple issue of how they sold XRP, that could go to trial, and he actually thinks that's the highest probability. But Attorney Fred thinks a Judge Torres is not going to want this whole case to go to trial. Imagine how much of a you-know-what show it would be if John D and 75,000 XRP holders and all these companies that filed affidavits were forced to go to trial. It would be a massive mess. Judge Torres is going to want to narrow the case down before it goes to trial. So Attorney Fred actually thinks that Judge Torres is going to force the SEC to make the statement that their case no longer has anything to do with secondary sales. Now, this would essentially take XRP holders out of the case, and the SEC would be unable to prove that secondary market sales of XRP are securities. This is a massive win, and this would allow exchanges to relist XRP. It would allow you and me to keep using XRP just like we have been, and it would allow any single project to build on the XRP ledger. Now, later down the road, Ripple would have to keep fighting the SEC about how they sell XRP, whether or not their ODL product is compliant, but all of that is much more of a minor issue, and that ultimately will just get decided with a fine, and the SEC and Ripple can hash that out. Now, other lawyers like Jeremy Hogan actually think this whole thing is still going to get decided at summary judgment. He still thinks Judge Torres is going to make all the calls. So there is some debate out there, but I would say most of the lawyers are leaning towards the fact that we're likely going to see some of this case go to trial. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, but the good news is we don't have to wait long. Almost every single lawyer following this case thinks we're going to have summary judgment any day now. At the latest, it's probably going to take about 2 weeks, but almost every single lawyer thinks summary judgment is right around the corner, and until that happens, all we can do is speculate on what's going to go to trial and what Judge Torres is going to decide on. Now, the last thing I need to point out is almost every single lawyer is pretty convinced that if this case does go to trial, our chances of a settlement actually skyrocket. All the lawyers point out that neither party wants this case to go to trial. It's a huge waste of resources, even for the SEC. It's going to distract them a lot from the other cases they have going on. So that really could skyrocket our chances of a settlement. And like always, we could see a settlement before summary judgment, although I think right now that's probably a lot less probable. We just need to see what Judge Torres decides at this point. It's going to be right around the corner. We only have a couple more days of waiting. The good news about all of this is most of the lawyers agree. At this point, there is almost no possibility left that XRP is going to be declared a security. Most of this is now just coming down to what happens to Ripple, what's their fine going to look like, what's the slap on the wrist going to be. But when it comes down to XRP holders being involved in this case, most of the lawyers agree it is game, set, match for the SEC. Them losing this most recent expert was a killer to them proving XRP was a security. So regardless of what happens at summary judgment, I think we all just need to be happy that when it comes down to the status of XRP, it's never going to be declared a security. Anyway, thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed this update. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe. It really does mean so much. And for now, Mickle out.